Welcome back to the Bluprint Podcast. It's your boy, MI Visuals, Mohammed Imam, back with my co-host and co-founder, Ray Roots. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. I'm just, I'm happy, man. 13 episodes in a row. I never thought I'd get that consistent with someone. And you know what? We are. So I'm happy.
Damn, it's only 30, man. That's the bare minimum. I'm joking.
Hey, what are you talking about? That's over 3 months.
Yeah, I'm playing. But yeah, today we were joined by a special guest who is a multidisciplinary creative who has worked with some big brands, including Netflix, Samsung, BBC, ITV, and more. So I'd like to introduce MoAli, who is a multidisciplinary designer and considers himself a senior designer. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Glad to be here. Glad to join you guys on this podcast, and hopefully it's not a bad luck episode as 13 weeks, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine, man. I mean, it's been a rough start so far, so
Yeah.
but yeah. So you got a YouTube channel. You're also a senior designer who's been doing it for a while. So do you want to just give a bit of background about yourself before we
Yeah,
jump into the
sure.
icebreaker questions?
Well, yeah, of course. So I've been a designer for close to 15 years now. You mentioned the YouTube thing, which literally recently only started, and I think it's only been like 5 or 6 weeks, so it's nothing big right now. But hopefully, it goes strength to strength and grows. And like you said, I'm a multidisciplinary designer, so I've got my fingers in all sorts of areas of creative industry. But yeah, let's see how it goes from there. And then,
What makes you go from being in an industry for 15 years and then after 15 years, you're like, all right, now I want to get on YouTube?
well, to
It's
be
just,
honest, it was more about like just getting out there in social media space and promoting yourself, promoting your work, different areas that I want to get into in terms of my career. So because of that, as well as I felt like, oh, there's a lot I want to talk about and I don't get to talk about it. So I thought, okay, you know what? Let me just put it out there. Let's see what happens. And
mm,
everybody wants to be like get onto YouTube. Let's face it.
mm.
A lot of us put it off, and I've been putting it off for a long time myself. I thought, why not? New year, new start. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's funny because we were the same because before I was I'm a graphic designer and I've been doing podcasting for actually a few years now. So before I was running a podcast with a group of friends named Inspire, and we're actually recording a podcast again later today, which is going to be like a comeback episode. But that was to do with reading books and trying to inspire people to read more. But yeah, I was always like planning to get back on YouTube, to get on YouTube properly. And yeah, me and Ray were discussing it for like a good 2 years before we even actually started or created anything. And then yeah, just this year, this last few months, we started December the 1st, and here we are today. So it's interesting.
I was on YouTube.
Yeah, you were on
I
YouTube
remember.
actually.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah,
I was on YouTube. Yeah, that
yeah.
was fun. But I mean, it was never something I took serious. But it was fun.
So Ray, I'll let you speak a bit about yourself, just so Ali's a bit familiar before we start.
Yeah, I'm Ray. Not my real name, as I've mentioned plenty of times on the podcast, but you can call me that. And I'm a photographer and a videographer. I've done photography ever since I was a child with like disposable cameras, and then it kind of progressed into point and shoot, and then um, phones, and then eventually DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. And then I've done video for about 5 years, I think. So about a third of the time you've been in the industry, I've done some video work, and yeah, and obviously I've done podcasting. I've done the podcasting before. After MI Visuals dropped his, I got inspired. I met him in 2017. I don't remember if you. I think your podcast had just launched the first couple of episodes when we met.
Yeah.
And I got home, I got inspired, and I started my own podcast. And then I quit that podcast and I started a new one, and I quit that one, and I was doing YouTube stuff. And then I kind of took a break from the whole putting my face out there, and started planning with MI Visuals on what we should do with this idea that we have, which turned out to be the Bluprint. So that's a short intro about me.
Yes, sir. So, today we're going to be talking about a few different things, including how you like got to a point where you've been juggling so many different plates, and like you say, you're proficient in graphic design, motion design, interaction design, user interface design, product design. So I like to also break that down a bit because when I started, obviously a lot of people when they start, they don't know these different terms and what they are. And now I work in an IT background full time as well, so I'm familiar with all of these terms of obviously. So we're going to talk about that a bit. We're also going to go into some creative business advice and also your creative origins and influences. But before we get into that, we're going to do some icebreaker questions. I asked you to submit one. First, you said one about if you weren't creative, what would you be doing? Which I declined because we had literally answered that in the last episode. So it's probably going to be really fresh on the listener's mind. So I was like, okay, we'll leave that for now because if it's only your one, then I don't know. But yeah, so you submit another one. What's an embarrassing guilty pleasure you have that you don't really tell anyone else?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I'll let Ray go
Also
first.
for you guys to answer first.
Yeah, I'll let
Is
Ray
it
go.
ha-
I'll let Ray
is
go
it-
first.
Is it have or had?
Have or had, whatever. Have is more interesting because you're doing it right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, I can't think of like a guilty pleasure that I have right now that's embarrassing. But
I
I've,
think we
I,
just don't want to disclose it in front of everybody. That's
oh
all.
no, I'm very honest about making fun of myself. Like I'm I'm okay with that. I've stated multiple times here that embarrassing things. So yeah. But I can tell you something that I had, and it was something I definitely kept a secret for years because it was so embarrassing. That's what I thought, at least.
Can I
Alright,
guess?
it's gonna
Can
be
I guess?
juicy, then let's do it.
Can I guess before you say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Rap.
Oh no, I'm not embarrassed by that. I
You should-
wanted to be.
You should be.
I noticed there's a guy on YouTube uploading music under my name now, Raymond Roots, and I'm like, oh, you know what?
What?
People are gonna think it's me. I went in. I'm sorry. I went in and disliked his video just for using my name.
Wow. Okay. So are you sure he's using your name or you using his name?
No. I was out there first. Okay.
Hey, that
I was
might
at
be
the-
his legit government name. So
That's right. I might lose this case then.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
All
what's
right,
your guilty
so-
pleasure then?
I was in high school. I guess you guys in the UK call it like college.
Yeah, or secondary school, something like that.
Yeah, secondary school, and I was in I think my last year, and then when you're in that level of education and you're hanging out with the guys, there's a lot of like macho, toxic stuff. Like men aren't supposed to do this and that, and we're not supposed to watch this and that. But I go home every day and I watch One Tree Hill.
Wow.
Every day, bro. I love that show, man.
Oh my days.
okay.
That would be my daily routine,
That
man.
is hilarious. Wow.
That was my guilty pleasure.
That's such a random guilty pleasure.
I know, right?
I don't know what to think about that.
We mentioned that to the boys in school.
I mean, I think if they're not listening to this podcast, but if they were, it would have been the first time they heard. Oh, I'll give you another one. I'll give you another one since we're on the topic of
man.
embarrassing. So, in the area I grew up with, I grew up with a lot of people who are like, they call themselves gangsters, right? They weren't, but they called themselves gangsters.
Yeah.
And like the type of music they would listen to was like hardcore, like Tupac and Biggie and DMX and that type of stuff. And I remember we went out to play football, and this was way back when I actually played football. One of them grabbed my phone and he was like, "All right, let's see what kind of music you got on your phone." And he clicked one song and it started playing some sad Rihanna song.
Oh my days.
And everyone looked at me and I couldn't own up to it. So I said, no, my cousin put it on my phone. I didn't put it on my phone.
Okay.
And yeah, I got clowned. But I really liked that jam back in the day.
Which song was it?
I'm not going to tell you what song it is. That's too embarrassing. That's too embarrassing.
All right, should I go next?
Yeah, I gave you two. So I you better give me a good one.
I don't know, man. I can't think of. All right, cool. I got two embarrassing ones, and well, one isn't. All right, so the first one is I play and have played Minecraft for about 8 years or something because I just really enjoy it. And I feel like a lot of people look down on it because it looks like a kid's game, but
I did not know that. I've known you for a while. I did not know that.
Oh yeah, I played it for a while on and off, but yeah, because it's a sandbox game, so you can get really creative with it. And I just like being able to create random things, and it's quite calming as well. So it's quite satisfying. So yeah, I've been playing that for a while, and even my wife mocks me about it. But I don't mind. But yeah, that's one of them. I don't really tell anyone that. But yeah, if anyone does play, jump on with me. I don't mind. Hit me up. This is now a call to reach out to people. All right. But yeah, the other one is I used to watch Love and Hip Hop like heavy.
Well, no way. No way.
Yeah, I used to watch Love and Hip Hop. Like
Love?
I was up to date for a good couple of seasons, and then I don't know why. I used to always look down on it as well. It's like, oh, man, all these reality shows, and then my friend was like, just give it a chance, man.
And you gave it a chance.
I gave
sure.
it more than a chance. So yeah, I ended up watching a good 3 seasons or something. Boy,
Wow, not even one, like 3 whole seasons.
Yes, sir. I was there ready. I was there tweeting it and stuff. I'm joking. I wasn't tweeting it. Don't worry.
Oh my god, who's your favorite character?
I don't remember, man.
Stop lying. Stop lying.
I don't want to say it, man.
Just say it. You know it.
I don't know. All right. There's one guy called Scraps Delion who's just a funny guy. Okay, see, this is why it's embarrassing, but obviously I stopped that a few years ago. Thankfully,
Right.
I gained clarity of mind there.
Of course.
But yeah, that's. I feel like those are more embarrassing than what you said. But yeah, I'll let MoAli go now.
See, I didn't realize we are gonna do 2, but okay. My first one is like there's this meme out there where there's this like hard man with AirPods on, and then there's another picture usually next to it of like some soppy songs that he's listening to. That's
okay.
totally me. I don't listen to much music, but my taste in music is trash, and it's either like really filthy, colorful language, or it's like really sad romantic songs.
Okay.
And
same.
I literally won't be able to play that stuff out loud because it's either too colorful, like I said, or it's just like, oh, what is this soppy guy like? Is he being heartbroken or something?
If you use Bluetooth headphones, just make sure you never get caught slipping with the Bluetooth off.
Yeah, that stuff only comes on the. It's not even on the Bluetooth one. Or if it's wired, then that's safe enough to play. It's like that.
What's the other one then?
Okay. I guess a second one would be okay. So way back in like the early 2000s, a lot of people used to watch wrestling, and I'd have to admit I probably still do.
How's that guilty pleasure? Cool, man. That's all right.
Is that all right? Okay, I'm not.
It's not a guilty pleasure at all. That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, I actually watch wrestling still. So
who's your favorite wrestler then?
Right now, there's this guy called Cody Rhodes.
Yeah,
and he's pretty decent.
Okay,
it's not like back in the day when we used to have The Rock and all of that. So they're not. It's not as good as those times, but I like the entertainment value.
Yeah, I mean,
stories.
That's just misogynistic men's love and hip hop. I'm joking.
Who's your favorite wrestler?
It's gotta be Triple H, man. All time Triple H.
Really?
Yeah, Triple H is just a badass to me, man.
That's like one of my most hated ones.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because he can play the villain side and the good guy side so well, and he had the hammer thing, and I don't know. I just thought he was a beast. He was really cool.
I don't know about that.
Okay, what about yours then?
I had two from
Ray
two
Mysterio.
different eras. No. I like Ray, but it wasn't my favorite.
Ray Mysterio, get it?
Yeah, that's I got it now. Yeah, took me a minute, but I got it eventually.
It was a bad joke, right?
I don't know if you guys remember this, but at one point it was called WWF or something like that. Yeah. And during that era, I think it was either Sting or Booker T who was my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Booker T was cool, man.
Yeah, I liked his intro song. I think that's mostly
why. It was so good.
Yeah. I know, right? That was amazing.
Dig it,
sucker. Anyways,
that's
and
the
then
music he listens to.
I wouldn't be embarrassed about that at all. But then we got to WWE. I think my favorite was Batista.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah.
You know what? His acting skills have really gone up a notch.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. You should have seen him before.
Yeah, when he first started off, he was like really cringeworthy. But boy, it's in the Guardians of the Galaxy, quality acting, and some of it is like improvised as well. And it's like, wow, is this good?
I have a hot take,
but I guess they're like full-time actors in wrestling anyway.
Yeah, they are.
What's your hot take?
My hot take is The Rock is a horrible actor.
Oh wow, really? Oh, that's cold, man. I think that guy should run for president in the United States. Honestly,
He could run for. I mean, I like him, but I don't think he's a good actor.
Wow. Okay.
He plays the same role every single movie.
Yeah, I guess it's like Jason.
Shall I tell you one series where he's actually really good?
Which one?
You know, Ballers. There's a series called Ballers with
Oh, yeah, I've heard
Denzel
of it.
Washington's son. I forgot his name. Something Washington.
David something.
Yeah, he's pretty big now, but yeah, they're both in the series called Ballers, and I think he's actually really good in it.
Yeah, I love that you say he's so big now, but you call him Denzel Washington's son.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't outshine your pops, man.
Exactly. But, yeah, on to the next question, which is funny because, yeah, the question was, what would you say to yourself if you could go back in time 10 years or go forward in time 10 years? And I'll be telling myself not to watch Love and Hip Hop, but so I don't embarrass myself here 10 years later. But I'll let Ali go first this time.
Right. You know what? When I first saw this question, yeah, it's I thought, okay, going back 10 years that's like quite a standard question. But I've never heard it being phrased and structured in a way where what would you tell yourself 10 years time and forwards? So
Yeah.
that was really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Going back 10 years, I would probably just say you know what, trust the process, because I'm quite a firm believer in you've got to walk your road to get to wherever you are. So where I am today, I had to take that route that I've taken to get to where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you got to be grateful however far you come or however far you think you should have been, wherever you are, that's where you're meant to be right now.
Yeah.
That's just something that I believe in.
Yeah.
But 10 years time, I would say, you know what, don't forget where you came from as well. So
Come on, that's a cliched answer. Give us something else.
Just remember,
Give us some drama.
because you know what, you always have aspirations to, like, okay, you want to make it so far, get so big or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But just don't forget where your humble beginnings were. That's what mine would be. What about yours?
Yeah, that's nice. It's fair enough. Ray, do you want to go, or I'm happy to go?
No, he asked you, so you go first.
So I agree with you 100% on that. Like the path you're at now, where you're going it comes from where you've been and that whole life experience. And I always think about like regrets that I had and stuff like that. But then nowadays I'm more of a balanced mindset, like you are when you say that, because if you always regret things, like you're not gonna really like think about the things that you have now as a good thing. Like you're going to be unhappy about it. You're always going to want to change it, which is most likely not a good thing, because on a day-to-day basis you're already striving to be happy and content with yourself. So why do you want to change things in the past? But I mean, one thing I would just say is just work harder, because I was pretty lazy back then. I spent a lot more time trying to I spent a lot of time playing games, and I don't know, it's a natural thing if you're young, but yeah, I got advised a lot to like just put in a bit more effort, and I think I could have like probably propelled myself to great distances. But obviously that's in a hypothetical situation. Like if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't probably be working hard now. Like who knows? But yeah, it's an interesting one. But yeah, going forward, I don't really have anything to say. It'll be more like hopes. I just hope that I become someone that picks up good habits and leaves the bad ones behind, and do that on a consistent basis, but also looks after myself like mentally. Like I know, like if I work hard and I continue with what I believe in and my passions, I know that I'm gonna go far. And that's what I believe. But what I want is more for like my human, personal side of me to develop. So I want to like be able to be a reliable person. If anyone calls on me, I'm there to support them. And also, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and that's something I've always struggled with. So I want to try and get to a point where I'm comfortable and consistent in that regard. So yeah, that's me. What about you, Ray?
2 words. Do you know what I'm gonna say?
Get money.
No.
Okay.
Buy
buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin.
Oh my God! And Tesla stock, yeah.
No, that's 3 words. I can't say that. I'd buy. You know what? When in 2011, I think going back to like 2011, 12, 13, 14, I spent all my money on sneakers. And my mom would keep saying, spend it on something else. And I said, no, it's a good investment because these are like Jordans and you can sell Jordans for an even higher price than you got them for. Turns out the country that I live in, that's not the case. It's just culturally, people don't care about, at least they didn't at that time. I think it's getting hyped up again. But at that time, they didn't care as much about Jordans. But I didn't care about that because I said, you know what, I'm gonna rock it, and eventually I'll get something for them. Instead of thinking, you know what, for one pair of sneakers, I can get 2 Bitcoins.
Yeah, but
And
back then you didn't know that.
Yeah,
When you
come
hit
on.
I
like
know in
$50,000.
2013,
He did not know about Bitcoin in 2013.
I did. I wrote a paper on it in university.
Really?
Wow.
But you know what? I talked to my study group a few weeks ago, just to revise on what we actually wrote about, and the topic was blockchain and Bitcoin.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
one of my friends told me that one of our assignments, and obviously this so many years ago, I couldn't remember this in detail, but he said one of our assignment was to create a wallet, and then our teacher would transfer a Bitcoin to us
For free.
for free because back then it had no value. It was like the value was so low.
I feel
And
that teacher's kicking himself right now.
so now we have I think the school paid for it,
Oh,
but now we have, like, I know that I had a Bitcoin in my possession, and I didn't even know. And I wrote about blockchain, I wrote about decentralized currencies, and still I decided to get sneakers instead. So if I could go back 10 years, I would have tell myself, stop buying that many shoes, buy more Bitcoins. And if
so
I can,
10 years ago, when you like researched into it and everything, did you foresee it like blowing up as much as it has?
no, you know what, 10 years ago I didn't care about it. I just wanted to pass my exam.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I wrote about it, but I didn't like my friends. They all, like, I have friends who bought Bitcoin and they have it at home, but they can't access it because they forgot the password on a hard drive.
Yeah.
But like I didn't look into it. Like my other friends, they either bought it or were on the verge of buying it. I never considered it
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, I just wanted to pass. I didn't care about the topic. I just wanted to pass the exam, but I knew what the topic was. So
Well,
that's what I would do 10 years ago.
hindsight.
There's a theme that goes on every time we ask Ray a question. It's about, it comes out about
Bitcoin.
money at the end, or Bitcoin. Yeah,
Bitcoin.
so he's
I made
gonna-
so many bad financial decisions. Like you don't. I was in mad debt until like 3 years ago because I just kept borrowing and borrowing money to buy stuff. Like I didn't have I didn't have an outlook on where I wanted to be financially in 5 years. It was just, you know what, I need these pair of shoes. I need this laptop. I need this camera. Even my first camera that I bought, I bought it on money that I borrowed.
So your recent video is really like a conversation to yourself
Oh,
a few years
100%.
ago.
100%. You know, my mom and my brother used to say I have a hole in my hand because the minute money drops into my palm, it leaves again. Like my spending habits was so crazy. I remember my cousin gave me, I guess in you guys are both in UK, I guess like £400 for my birthday, and I spent it in like 2 days by inviting people to cafes and eating out, and like I'd spend my money so fast. So when you hear me on the podcast talking about finances, or you see me on
some deep regrets
Twitter
there,
or in the videos, it's literally I'm talking to myself.
Fair enough.
And then if I could go for 10 years, I'd say you should have gotten more Bitcoins.
Oh my god, no! Give us something else, man.
You know, if I could go forward,
I'm gonna start writing what I think your answers are gonna be before every episode now. It's gonna be Bitcoin every time.
do I go forward and tell myself something in 10 years, or do I I'm not quite sure I understand it.
Just say it however you understand it. If you were to go forward in time, in 10 years, what would you say to yourself, whoever that rate is at that time?
Hopefully, I'd be able to look at myself in 10 years and say I've achieved the goals that I set out for myself, and even more, and I've become I've become bigger than the person that I wanted to, like a better person than I wanted to be. So hopefully that's what I see in 10 years. And hopefully I see a child or two. Because, I want to be a dad at some point.
Yes, sir.
And, an Audi or a Tesla or something, but whatever.
Yes, sir. Good stuff. All right, cool.
Just
So
dropping them in there, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta get that in there.
yeah, why not? But yeah, so we always, when we have guests on, we always ask them about their creative origins right from the start to where they are now, and like what influenced them and who influenced them. So if you wanna like just briefly, or it doesn't have to be brief, just talk to us about how you got into creative fields, and how you got from like a starting point as a student or whatever to the point where you're an experienced designer.
Sure. Okay, so like some people just know from a young age what they want to be when they grow up. That wasn't me. I didn't have a clue. Okay, so in college, since school actually, college, uni, I just studied business, assuming I'd get into some random office job at the end of it. And obviously, looking back at it now, I realized that was actually a terrible plan, because what do you mean? What do you do with a business degree? But thankfully, I guess I found my calling before then. And I guess I started off with design back in my teens, when I used to mess around with like a bootleg copy of Photoshop. And let's face it, nobody used to pay for it back then. Okay, it was like, I think a CS1 or CS2, and it was pretty easy to get like a copy of it online somewhere on LimeWire or whatever it was back then.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yeah, nobody paid for it. Let's face it, even big studios probably didn't. But thankfully,
Wow.
now I'm able to
Okay.
give back to the company, I guess, in some sense. And
Right, because now you're paying for it, right?
Well, to be honest, I'm only paying for it now because it's too hard to get like a bootleg copy.
Wow.
It's a lot easier to just pay for it now.
Can I just
This
ask,
guy.
like, sometimes I think about like how like the older versions of these softwares were. Like I've only started using like this kind of software probably like 2015. Coming up to now.
You've used the polished versions, man.
Yeah, so I want to know, like, did they have like like on Photoshop? Did they have like drop shadows and stuff like that, or would you have to do that manually? Like, how did that work?
That prehistoric. They had drop shadows, and a lot of the tools that you have now, they obviously didn't have things like content aware fill and
yeah.
things like that. Guides, I think, was like quite basic back then, if they even had it. But a lot of it was pretty solid back then. It's just
When did they get rid of Photoshop elements?
I never used that before in my life, so I don't really know.
Oh, that's like a light version of Photoshop. I remember we had that in school. So
Yeah, to be honest, because I've always used like non-painful version of a proper Photoshop, so thankfully I didn't need to go down to like Photoshop BTech or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you're like coming from a family with immigrant parents, you know, like it's an unwritten rule that you should strive to become a doctor or an accountant or one of those so-called traditional jobs. And art and design and all of that is fine as a hobby, but it's not something that you pursue as a career choice. But halfway through uni, I figured out, because I was doing it on the side anyway, and I figured out, okay, maybe this is what I actually want to do for a living. And my parents didn't really warm to the idea, because they're just thinking, how are you going to make a living of this? Where are you going to get money from and all of that? But I stuck to it and eventually landed myself in a full-time job.
Yeah, but before you even get into that, when you say you were doing it on the side, how did you start that? Other than when you first downloaded like Photoshop, or like what were you creating back then?
You know what? A lot of the time I was just designing stuff that I've seen that I liked, and I tried to replicate it. And that was my way of, I guess, building up my skills in terms of like figuring out how to achieve a certain effect or a look.
Yeah.
So I used to look at stuff, and then I used to think, oh, that's really cool. Let me try and make my own version of that. And that's how I started off from. And then slowly, a lot of people, like, you know, slightly outside my circle started finding out about it. And if they needed like a poster or something small designed, like, you know, barely paid for or not even paid for, it's like for free sometimes, I used to just like make it for them. So my local like community center used to ask me to make some posters and stuff.
Yeah.
And things like that. It was just like really basic stuff, and then it just grows from there. It just gains more and more traction naturally. So that's, I guess, how it started off with in the really early days. And we're going back like to when I was like 15, 16 maybe.
Okay.
So you can imagine how old I am right now.
I mean, I'll guess like early 30s.
More like mid 30s.
Okay, I mean that's
our oldest guest.
Yeah,
no, he's not actually.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah, exactly. He just wants to make you feel bad, man.
I'm the villain on this show, by the way.
Yeah, it's good cop, bad cop.
You know what? If there was like a superhero, I would be a villain for sure.
Thank you.
It is way more fun to be a villain than it is to be a hero.
This other guy that is co-hosting this podcast, I'm not gonna say his name.
Raises eyebrows.
He's picking the hero side.
What? The rules, the constraints.
It's so boring.
You're not a villain in real life, so why would you want to be a villain with superpowers?
I am a villain in real life. I don't know what you're talking about. This guy's a villain. He downloads softwares.
Yeah, he's definitely.
That's villain
He's gonna be
activity right
downloading
there.
software at villain level.
Yeah. So, ha 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 ha. I'm gonna.
I've deleted your Bitcoin passwords.
Yeah. I'm gonna hack hard drives and hardware wallets.
Yeah. When you say you landed your first job, like where did you go from there, and what job was that, and what did you do in that job?
It was like a graphic design role, and it was really like for a small charity that worked with BME deaf community back here in the UK,
Interesting.
and I learned sign language from there as well. It was like
Oh,
really
that's really
cool.
cool.
But for me, it was like, oh, it's my first job, and I'm getting paid to do what I love. I was loving it. So even though back then the pay was crap, but I felt like I was minted. So it was, to me, it felt like, okay, I got my foot in through the door, and I stuck to my guns, and I took this risk, so-called risk, and it paid off. And from there, it was really like just, I guess, just going from one place to another, and then just upgrading, climbing up the ladder slowly. And
Interesting.
it's a little bit different from, I guess, if I was to study at college or university and have a degree in graphic design or fine arts or anything like that. But being, I guess, self-taught and just working my way up, it, missed out on the theory side, a lot of it, and I had to pick that up myself slowly over the years. But I had real world application, so in that sense, it helped out.
Yeah.
So where a lot of I see it now, even where a lot of university students and stuff, they come out with their portfolio of uni work and all of that, and it's very abstract and very illustrative, and it looks really nice a lot of the time, but in real world applications, it's not really useful. So a company won't be using that style unless you're Twitter, apparently, with their new rebrand. But a lot of their styles is like it's not going to be useful. So they've almost got to like start again in terms of rebuilding what their style is going to be.
Yeah.
So I've always had to, like, I guess, develop a corporate style because clients were wanted that sort of look.
But would you say that was at a detriment to your creative style yourself and like your passion for it?
No, my passion for it existed, and that's why I used to do it on the side, even for free and for very little money, and even though I was studying something completely different. So,
What's going on with the microphone?
oh, sorry, is that mine?
I think so. Yeah, it just sounded like you're slapping it.
Oh, sorry. I think
It's all good.
yeah. So I guess my style and my passion existed from doing it on the side anyway. But because I was getting paid to do it for in a certain style for a client and for businesses and for organizations, it developed into what would be sought after in terms of like what you would get paid for to do.
Yeah.
So it's great to have a really abstract style and have a certain look, but if nobody's going to pay for it, then it's kind of useless. Well, back then it was useless. Nowadays you can make a living of that on social media and Instagram, but way back then that wasn't the case. We didn't have any social media really, and there was no influencers and making ways of making money through that sense. So these days, if you have a certain look and you really like a certain style and that's what you want to pursue and develop, then you can do that and you can make a living of that, which is really awesome, and it's a really great opportunity. It's just, for me back then, that wasn't an option if
Yeah.
I wanted to also make a living.
There's probably more money in the corporate look anyway right now. I mean, even though there's stylistic approaches that you can take, I think if you want like big companies, I think you got to go corporate, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of the times I feel the same way as well, where corporate lands you in a safe spot in terms of career.
Right.
You can always, like, flex your boundaries in that sense, but as long as your style is going to suit corporate clients, then you're going to be safe in terms of like having work.
Do you think it's much to ask for a creative to create two styles? One that is corporate and one that is whatever they want themselves?
I think it might be a little bit difficult to balance the two, but if you can find a way of infusing your own style into a corporate look, then that's what could make you stand out in terms of the industry and where
Right.
they look to hire you over somebody else.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you have a certain look and it still fits inside a certain, and when we say corporate style, it's not like, oh, it's got to be like sans serif fonts and block colors and no, visual styling at all, apart from like the most basic and bare minimum. It's basically like it's not so out there that this is like a piece of art. It's not design, because design and art
Right.
is very different, isn't it? Where
Right.
art is a form of expression, design is a communication tool. So
Let's hold that thought, because I'm going to ask you about that kind of stuff a bit later on. If you like continue from like your first job and on your working your way up, I want you to tell me like what was your most interesting jobs that you've had, and what was your favorite job that you had? What did you do in
oh,
that job?
my favorite job was easy. It was when I was at ITV News. I just and it's most of the time, like most jobs, it's not about the job. It's not about what I was doing. It's about the team around you, and from everybody from my manager to the people on the same level as me, the people higher than me. It was so fun to be around every single day. It felt like, oh, I'm just going in to like chill with my friends, and yeah, I'm like
Mm-hmm.
working and making designs and stuff. But
Mm.
it was that's what makes a job. End of the day, it's about the
Yeah.
people around you. So that was my favorite thing. In terms of like favorite creative work that I've got to do, um, I guess with in terms of like some freelancing that I've did with my friend and also who was my mentor, Ro, from Archetype, who his agency used to be called Make Believe back in the day. I got to work on a lot of BBC documentary idents, so their title graphics and things like that, where I got to animate it, and then that was my first like big clients, I guess, working with like BBC and Channel 4 and things like that. So that felt really cool, and it was like I had a lot of creative freedom to express myself in terms of animating it in any way that I felt like, as long as it looked good at the end, they were like, most of the time they were really happy with it.
Mm. That's interesting. So yeah, like you already started talking about it a little bit, but I want to talk about how you, being a multidisciplinary creative, being able to do so many different things. Like you just said, you do animations as well. So like, how did you get into all these different things? Because you do UI design, interaction design, product design, and like I want you to break it down as well a little bit. So like, kind of, I want to challenge you to kind of tell it in a story, because graphic design it seemed to be where you started, but how did you get into the other stuff, and
Okay,
what would you like define them as?
sure. So yeah, I started off with graphic design, and then I quickly like pivoted into motion graphics and animation, because well, less so animation, more so motion graphics, because that was still graphic design. All it is making it move. So if we think of design as a tree, and then you have loads of branches that split off it, and then those branches split off into other branches. So it's kind of like that, where you have design, and then you have graphic design, which is a big bulk of that tree, and then graphic design splits off into motion design, and then from motion design you have motion graphics, which is like graphic design but just moving, and then you have animation, which is like an illustrative style of cartoons and things like that, and then you have visual effects, which is like in the movies what you see, and in graphic design you might have like print design, and then you have digital design, and then you have illustration, and then there's just splits off and branches off into so many different areas. So in terms of like why I've been bouncing from one branch to another, I guess it's purely because I like to know how to do other different things, and I like to, so I guess, try it out and see, experiment, and you won't know what flavor ice cream you like unless you try a lot of them. So in for me, it was like, okay, I want to know what I really enjoy, and then I'll know what to do. And
Mm,
also because I thought in the future, if I want to ever be like a creative director or anything like that, I'd have to have some sort of knowledge in terms of like what is required and what it takes to do, say, for example, user interface design. So that's why I'd try it out, and I'd see, okay, now I know if I had a user interface design job, then what would be required, what questions I would need to ask. So
mm,
I was just preparing myself for future, I guess.
mm.
Question.
Yep.
Uh, Maybe an uncomfortable question, but I'll ask it anyway. What do you think about the saying "Jack of all trades, master of none"?
I think it's most of the time it's very true, and it's like I said, it's most of the time. It depends on like how fast you're of a learner you are, I guess, and how quickly you can pick things up and how deep you're going into it. So even though I might consider myself a generalist, my I guess forte would be motion graphics, because the
Mm.
bulk of my career I've been a motion graphic designer. So in ITV, in Al Jazeera, with BBC, with even with my current place, a lot of the work that I do is motion graphics. Although in my current place, right now I'm having to do everything, because obviously with everything going on in the world, there was like massive redundancies, and unfortunately, like my entire department got let go, and I was the only one that kept on, which was
Right.
really bittersweet, because you lose all your friends. Like my manager got let go, and then my manager's manager got let go. The people below me got let go. Everybody got let go, and I was literally the only designer left in the company.
Crazy.
So I've got to do everything. But it kind of helped me being a generalist in that sense, because because I was a generalist. They knew that, okay, I'd be able to cover all aspects of the design requirements that they have.
Mm.
So there's definitely pros and cons. And way back in the day, is like you wouldn't have that many specialists in terms of, okay, this person only does UI design, or this person only does um, this sort of style, or that sort of style, or that sort of disciplinary. It was a lot of like jack of all trades, and with some sort of speciality. But nowadays you have a lot of people with very very niche down skills and skill sets, and which is
Right.
really cool, because you can really borrow down and then become really good at it. So when you need the best user interface designer, then there's a handful of people that you can go and pick, and they're the ones that you want to work with.
What school of thought do you think you tend to lean towards? Because like, if you could speak to sports coaches who will say focus on what you're good at and make your strengths even stronger, and then you speak to entrepreneurs who might say the same thing, but you also find people say the opposite. So what would you say in 2021?
Um,
Generalist or specialist? What should someone strive to be?
um, Most of the time, I find that a lot of people would say strive to be a specialist. Controversially, I think that shouldn't be the case. I think you should strive to have a speciality, but you should still be flexible enough and have enough knowledge in other areas, where
Mm.
you aren't pigeonholed into one sort of area only. Because if a rainy day comes and work sort of dries up in one sort of area, then it can be a struggle. So if you're able to, I guess, be useful in many different areas, then you're going to be very sought after in terms of when it comes to small agencies. But if at the same time, having said that, if you want to work for the really, really big guys, like Double Negative or some of the really big VFX houses, then you got to be a specialist and really burrow down and go down in that T shape, where you are a specialist in just, I don't know, hair animation, where
Right.
when they need a somebody that does really realistic looking hair on a character, they know who to go to, and
Right.
they're not going to go to anybody else.
Right. So it kind of depends on what kind of business you're trying to get into.
Yeah, and
I th-
each different side has like their different like amount of money that you're going to earn as well. Because when you're super specialist, you're going to earn a lot of really high daily rates. It could be as high as like £1,000 a day or £2,000 a day, and that's going to be great. But when it's a dry season, it's going to be really dry as well.
right. I mean, I've I call myself a filmmaker when people ask me, because it just covers so much. But I've noticed within the last 2 years, maybe, that I need to specialize as well, and because the type of work that I want to do is not commercial. Like, in 10 years, when we now that we like we spoke about, what will you say to yourself in 10 years? In 10 years, hopefully, I wouldn't be doing corporate work. I want to get into like Hollywood, and for that reason, I felt like I had to at least start considering to specialize and only like really focus on a couple of things, such as like I want to write scripts and I want to direct. I don't want to do the editing. I don't want to do the filming.
Hmm.
Maybe maybe be a part of the color grading process, but that's just out of pure interest. I don't think I wanted to make it my career. But do you think being a generalist helps you solve business problems? Like it helps you see beyond the scope of, let's say for me, I'm a photographer and someone asks to get pictures done of their restaurant or whatever. Do you think me knowing other fields will help me solve other problems there, or will it help me get more business with my existing clients, or have you
So,
not had that experience?
so where you've just like explained is like sort of like two completely different directions. So
Right,
where you want to personally go into in terms of like Hollywood and all of that, you've got
right,
to specialize. You've got
for
to be a
sure.
specialist to get there. Because when you get to somewhere really big industry wise, like Hollywood or whatever it is, then they are only really interested in the best of the best. And to be
Right.
the best of the best, you've got to be a specialist. You've
Mm,
got to focus your efforts and skills into one really specific niche and become the best at that, or the best you can be at that.
mm,
When you want to work for with smaller businesses in terms of like photography, like you were saying, for a restaurant or anything like that, then I guess that's where a generalist helps, because you're able to help them with their business problems with other areas, because you'll have knowledge in other areas of the fields.
right.
So you have expertise in uh, uh, videos as well as photography. So for example, if they were just hiring you for a photo shoot for some of their products for social media, you could upsell your skills in terms of like, oh, I can do some videos as well, which will make it look way more interesting for some more posts on social media as well
Right.
as your website. So, or a TV advert. So that's where being a generalist helps. So hope
Mm,
that made sense.
Yeah, for sure.
mm. That's very interesting. So, what would you say you enjoy the most out of those things? If it was just like for you to be to do it as a hobby, like if it's just something for you to do as a daily pastime, out of those all those different kind of professions, what would you
Mm.
enjoy the most?
I guess motion graphics.
Mm,
That's where I've spent most of my career in, and that's what I enjoy the most, because it allows me to do, because motion graphics is still graphic design. Graphic design is a very, very integral part of motion graphics,
mhm.
and it's just using it also to animate it. And then you have so much flexibility in terms of the way you animate it and what you can do with that design. So that's what I would do if I had to only pick one.
Mm. Okay, cool. So that's that section of the podcast. We're going to move on to the last section now. We're going to be talking about creative business advice. You already gave quite a lot there, but I'm going to think about what kind of takes that I want to give now. So it's not too generic, and because you've been talking a lot, I'm going to direct this question at Ray and
Mm.
myself for now.
Uh-oh.
In terms of like, let's say someone wants to get into a creative field professionally, or like like they're just stumbling their way into it, what would you recommend? Or even if you are going back 10 years to like to speak to yourself about it, what would you recommend to do based on your knowledge now, and give me a reason why? How would you recommend learning things, and what kind of style would you recommend?
In terms of learning things, I think this is a two-part answer. In terms, if we're just talking about learning, I would say there's so many free resources, and you should just try everything until something sticks. That's what I did growing up. I didn't think of it
Would you
as
ask
I
people
need
to
to
try that now?
come again.
Would you ask people to do that now, like knowing what you know, like just try everything?
Yeah, for sure. Because
Yeah.
I can't tell you what you like. Like our guest said, like you don't know which flavor of ice cream you like until you taste them. Growing up, I didn't think of it as I need to do something creatively. I just thought, I'm going to try something new, and this is fun. But what I did a month ago was even more fun. So, I'm just trying to do something that I actually like. When I first bought my camera, as I mentioned before, I bought it by borrowing money. I didn't buy it at first to create a business out of it. I bought it at first because I wanted to have fun, and eventually, it got the attention of people around me, and then they started asking for services. I would say though, I wish I didn't know that you could make money off of it until at least a few years later. And the reason why I'm saying that is
Can you just repeat
because,
that once again? You wish you didn't know that you can make money of it.
yes, I wish I did not know that you could make money off of this for at least a year or two after I actually realized it. I wish that knowledge was delayed a little bit. I wish I didn't know it as soon as I did.
Why?
Because the reason why is because once I started noticing that I can make money off of this, I got to a point where I felt entitled to people's money if they asked for the tiniest of services, even though I wasn't very good or very established. And that meant that I only did stuff creatively if I got paid for it. And if I didn't get paid for it, my camera would sit on my shelf and collect dust.
Mhm.
And so I wish I had continued just to create because I actually liked it, and then I could get to a point where I'm good enough to where, first of all, I've created a habit of just creating for the sake of creating, but also I'm good enough to where I can actually ask for money and actually back it up with a nice portfolio. I think a lot of creatives
Mhm.
get into this whole thing of, I can make money. I paid for a computer. I paid for a camera, and then someone asks for something, and then they get like, well, you should pay me. Well, not necessarily. Like you need to create consistently for people to notice you, but also you need to be good enough to showcase a portfolio. And for years, I didn't have a portfolio.
Interesting. But in terms of actually learning the craft, other than just trying things randomly, would you would you recommend having a more strategic route? Because Ali recommended earlier that they should try and well, he said that he was replicating works that he liked, and that's interesting because I'm actually reviewing a book next week for the channel called Still Like an Artist, which also recommends the same thing. Like looking at your biggest influences and replicating their work, reverse engineering it, see like what decisions they made to get to to the solution that they provided creatively. So that's like what I was thinking about, more along the lines of what kind of strategies would you recommend?
I mean, and that's what I did when I first got into it. I started looking around at photographers and people who did photo manipulation and started reverse engineering it. But that might not work for everyone. We had Zoo on the podcast who said he tries not to be to
Hmm.
reverse engineer what other people are doing.
It's
He said
interesting.
if he does, it's because he wants to learn the technique, not because he wants the influence. So it really
Yeah,
depends on the
that's
person,
that's a technique that you use to basically learn the tool,
right?
essentially, isn't it?
And so that was his argument. I used it because I wanted to be the kind of guy that the photographers that I looked up to were. Like I didn't just use it to learn the technique. I was aware that I was learning technique along the way, but the reason why I did it is because I admired them and I look up to them. But that might not work for everyone. So I can't give one like a generic piece of advice. My advice in general would just be try everything. If you get into photography, you know what, try landscape photography, try wildlife photography, try urban photography, and then try different techniques, see what you like there are certain things within photography that I hate. Like I don't like food photography, I hate it.
Hmm.
But I only learned that I hate food photography by trying it.
Why do you hate it, by the way?
I don't know, like I can't seem to get it right, and even though I've tried for so long, I can't seem to get it right. And then my wife does it for 2 weeks and she's mastered it. I'm like, you know what? I give up.
He's hating on his wife, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the villain is really coming out today.
Yeah, it's because it got showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she surpassed me. She's not a photographer. She's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna try food photography, and boom. I'm like, what? Where did they come from?
Mm,
What?
that's cool though. I find that honestly, I get inspired when I see someone learn something very quickly, because I'm just like, oh, what the hell? Like that was cool, but yeah, obviously, I wish I could learn that fast. But I think it's very interesting as well. It's like they instantly found their natural calling.
Right.
Like, that's the way I see it. So I don't know.
That's true.
What about you, Ali? Like, what kind of strategies would you recommend someone like wanting to learn?
I
The
mean, first of all, use all the free resources that you can get. YouTube is so good for that. And there's more and more like tutorials and all sorts of skills and that you can learn from it for free, and it's so good. So, and like Ray said, just try everything because you don't know what you're going to enjoy, what you're going to be good at until you try it.
Mo Ali, you just missed the golden opportunity to self promote there. We do it
No, I don't
shamelessly
like
over here, and
self-promoting.
we're very shameless in 2021. So self promote as much as you can.
For
You know,
sure.
I've never been good at that, and I probably won't ever be. So I'm going to avoid it.
Oh, joking. Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, it's just try everything out, see what you enjoy, see what you like, see what you're good at. Because if you try it, then you'll know, and if you know either way, because Ray only found out that he doesn't like food photography because he tried it.
Mhm.
So
I hate logo design. I did try it.
When we got started, right? We were talking about like getting a logo done, and he's like, let's get someone to do our logo. And I was like, what do you mean? You're a graphic designer. You make the logo. And he's like, I hate logo design. I was like, oh wow, okay. I didn't realize that you could get into, you could do other stuff than logo design. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
In my early days, I used to hate logo design as well, honestly.
Mhm.
And I think I know why, because at that time in my career, I just was not good enough for it. Because
Mhm.
you can see where you're good enough for something and where you're not, because you're going to compare yourself to like industry professionals.
Yeah.
And they are like coming at it from a completely different level to where you are at in your career at that time.
Mhm.
So, and that's why maybe I used to like not like it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. Like, I know that I'm not as good as other professionals, and I don't. I still feel a bit like a snob about it because I've done plenty of practice and I've improved on it definitely, like from the beginning to where I am now. But I do look at other people and be like, they definitely made the logo in Photoshop, and I'm like a bit snobby about it. But then again, I'm like, I also don't want to do it at all. I see the beauty in it as well, and the beauty in corporate branding, but I just don't enjoy it. So that's one of the reasons I created this YouTube channel, is because I wanted to like show my creative flair more than I wanted to actually design like other people's work. So that's kind of the reason why. But obviously, it depends on where you are in your career and financially, if you need to make logos to get by and stuff like that. But obviously, I don't need it at the moment, thankfully. So that's kind of like why I decided I'm just gonna leave it for now. Like, I don't want to force learning things that I don't enjoy if I don't need to at the moment. But yeah. We'll move on to the next section then. So, creative business advice: how to get clients, how to get noticed by brands. You already kind of started talking about it, but let's talk about it from more of a freelancing point of view. You've worked for agencies and other corporate branding, but other corporate brands. But in terms of your own clientele and stuff like that, how do you get noticed, and how did you start? Because obviously now you're a senior designer. I'm sure people will be coming to you because they know you already. Your name is out there, and people recommend you and things like that. So how do you get clients, and in terms of like pricing and contract structures, can you give us a
So
bit of examples?
I guess in terms of like when you're starting out, it's a lot more difficult to gain traction because firstly nobody knows you, and that's it comes down to marketing. So always got to be marketing yourself. You've got to put your work out there, no matter how good or bad you think it is. Just put it out there because you will fall into somebody's budget and into somebody's style and taste of what they're after. So, and the only way you're going to improve and get known is by putting your work out there. And I used to hate doing that myself, honestly. I still hate it. And that's why I only recently started to like make a YouTube channel and stuff. But it's the only way you're going to get known is by putting yourself out there. And with social media nowadays, it's so easier. It's so much easier. You can create a page of on Instagram where it's just your creative design work, and you can just like blow up from there because you don't know when or how you're gonna like blow up and get become well known. But you're not gonna get well known if nobody knows who you are. It's like you can be the best designer out there or have the best creative style, but if nobody sees it and nobody knows it, then how will they come to you for that sort of work? So
I mean, how do you go, like, yeah, you could easily showcase your work by putting it on social media, but how do you get followers on social media, get people to notice it? Because creating a page is easy, but getting an audience is very difficult.
yeah, that's totally true, and it's not something that I've completely mastered myself. But I think over time, it naturally will hopefully begin to build up because with social media, there's like the whole hashtag thing and all of that, where you've got to
Right.
like try and master and get yourself known in that way. But also, it's gonna be like a little bit of offline marketing and networking. So if you like get some work from clients and stuff, if you follow them, then they'll probably follow you back because you basically become known to them and you build a relationship and build a rapport with them. But until you, I guess, become more in line with like your style and build a community and find your own community and tribe, it's just gonna you just gotta wait it out. You gotta trust the process. It's gonna take a while, and you'll get there eventually. It's just not gonna happen overnight.
All right, so we have two questions before we have to wrap up. The first one is always interesting because I think it's one of the most uncomfortable conversations you can have with your clients, and that's pricing. How do you go about pricing your products, and how do you deal with the anxiety of overpricing or underpricing?
It's hard to overprice unless you're like pricing out of the client's budget, and it's only uncomfortable while you're new at it, I guess.
Okay, so let me reframe the question because obviously when you're dealing with big clients, they have a budget, but when you're
Mm,
dealing with medium-sized or smaller clients, they usually come to you first asking, "Hey, can you do this video?" And then you
yeah.
get into pricing. So
Okay.
how did you handle that when you got started?
So when I got started, I was like doing it all wrong, and I only realized that now after many years of trying and working it out and figuring it out what is the right way. Um, and thankfully, there's a lot of resources on YouTube now to figure out how you price and how to charge. But in terms of with the easiest way to do it right now, for my advice would be ask the client what their budget is. And a lot of the times they won't want to really reveal it, but you got to ask the right questions to try and get them to give you some sort of ballpark figure. And then you
Right.
can see, okay, can your services and your time fall into that sort of budget range? And if it can't, that's fine. If you're able to recommend somebody else, that's great. But just be upfront and open with them. Be like, look, it's not going to work for me. I'm not, we might love each other, but we just can't tie the knot because we can't afford it.
Do you think when you get started out that you should decline projects because they don't pay you enough, or do you think they should just do as much as possible?
Oh, it depends on really where you are in your career, I guess.
Right.
If you're really early in your career, you really got to take all the breadcrumbs you can because don't want to starve. But if you can somehow make it work, even if you're offering reduced services, like for example, they might come to you, oh, I need a 5 minute video trailer, for example, and their budget doesn't fall in line with what you can offer for that service. But you can maybe offer to them, okay, I can only offer you a 1 minute trailer or a 30-second advert, and it's going to look really good, but it's only going to be a certain duration of time.
Right.
So just basically try and find a compromise.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because I've spoken to another guy who he's fairly successful, runs a video production company here in Copenhagen. And I asked him for advice. I was trying to sell him my camera, and I absolutely hate my camera. We'll get that into that, and I'll make a full video about that at some point. But I asked him like, what advice do you have in terms of pricing? And he said, don't don't let yourself become the cheap alternative.
Yeah, it's true because it's a rabbit hole that you're going to fall into. And if you only like really low ball and offer low prices, you're going to become known for that. And you're only going to attract clients that only want to pay those sort of numbers as well.
Hmm. So
So
I
find
guess my
that
question is,
basically.
and I'm digging a little bit here, but I guess my question is, how do you transition from being the guy who's forced to take, or the girl who's forced to take a lower price into now becoming someone who charges a premium? Like, how do you go from those clients to the bigger ones?
So we're taking the assumption that the work is good enough, first of all, to
Right, of
charge
course.
a more premium price. But you've got to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you keep getting the answer no, then you're doing something wrong, and that may be in terms of how you're approaching clients or the questions that you're asking them, and you're not able to show them the value of the work that you're offering to be of the level that you're asking for.
Right,
So if you're going on asking for, say, a $10,000 project, and they are only valuing your work to be at $2,000, then there's a big mismatch there and there's a big disconnect. So you've got to be able to offer your services and show your value of what you're asking. And if you're able to show that you're offering a higher value than what you're asking for, because then they're going to see it as a bargain, and then they're going to
right.
be seeing it like a no brainer.
this is what I mean when I say that I wish I didn't know as early on as that I could make money off of my services. I had a client, it was my biggest client to date. And it was my highest paying client as well. But after I got that client, I assumed that this was the price that I could charge for everyone. So
Mm,
even when I was approached by smaller clients, I gave them a premium price, and it led to a good chunk of the year with zero clients.
mm-hmm.
So I think everyone just needs to be aware of who they're talking to,
Yep.
and just because you got one big client doesn't mean that the next one is coming in.
Yeah, not everybody's
Um,
gonna have Netflix budgets.
right, exactly. So what do you do about contract? That's the last question. Like, how do you go about creating a contract as a freelancer?
That was something that you learn over trial and error, and I guess figuring out where your sticking points are when it comes to working with clients. But you got to cover some basics, such as when you expect payment. So, for example, you might ask for 50% upfront and then 50% on delivery, or the remainder on delivery, because you might incur other costs during that time. Um,
Right,
it's just things that naturally will come to you over time. And I guess in terms of like figuring out what you need to have in your contract in the first place, look for it online on YouTube. There's so many videos about what you should have in your contract and what you shouldn't,
right.
and that's a great starting point, to be honest. But over time, it's all gonna come naturally to you, to be honest. So it's all good. It's just
Have you learned from bad experience?
I've
I've
learned
only I've,
from
on- I've
so
only
many
had
bad
like one
things.
bad experience.
Man, the worst experience I had once was I left an entire industry because of a really bad client experience.
Wow.
I like literally don't want to work with those sort of clients ever again because of the experience that I had. And it's a learning process. Everything is a learning process. So
Right,
you got to learn from your mistakes, because it could be that they made some mistakes, I made some mistakes, but you only learn once you do it.
right. All right, so that's it for us. Now we're gonna wrap this episode up. Do you want to plug your socials and your YouTube channel?
If you can find me everywhere, MoAliTV. So it's short for Muhammad Ali TV.
Yeah, one thing before we leave, you say that you're not too comfortable with the YouTube thing, but I feel like you've come across very naturally. I feel like your videos are great, honestly.
I think so too.
Thank you.
So you make videos right now about branding and like big company brandings that have changed recently, and you criticize them in an interesting and humorous way as well, and you break it down very well, and you also show off your motion graphics skills in your videos as well. So don't undersell yourself in that regard. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
appreciate it.
Yes.
if audience comments means anything, if there's one YouTube channel I'm most excited about and its growth, it's literally yours. So I'm sure that you're going to be doing great on YouTube.
That's really kind of you to say.
So yeah, so you guys go check him out. He's got a lot of interesting stuff going on. We'll also plug him in the description of the podcast, along as we always do with our episodes. So yeah, so being your boys from the Bluprint, joined by MoAli today. So we've talked about him being a senior designer, being a multidisciplinary creative, and a whole bunch of different things. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next podcast episode. Peace.